Hello everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a rather impromptu type of video. This actually came to me from a lovely lady who messaged me on Instagram and asked if I would ever consider doing a video kind of detailing what I do to kind of get my ideas going and what I do at the very beginning of my writing process. So let's just jump right in because this is gonna be rambly and kind of out of control because I did not plan for this at all. I just decided because I actually started on another project today. I started actually writing for Project Yellow and I'm so excited. So I wanted to kind of document a little bit more about what I do from the very beginning. So ideas all have to start somewhere, right? And when I get an idea, it can happen at any time, any point in the day, any minute in the day, doing anything. But most often I'm reading something, my brain is preoccupied by something else when an idea pops into my head. Now, these aren't like complete book plots or anything really huge. It's just like the little bit of a sprinkle, like a tidbit of a premise of a story, or a little bit like a character will pop into my head, and then I'll just be like, oh my god, I need to tell this character's story. So, if you've watched I finished my first draft writing vlog, you'll know that I tend to write my book premise ideas or like whatever pops into my head on little sticky notes on the back of my phone. So if you can see that, there are a bunch of them under there now. I think there are 4 story ideas, and then there's one here that's just a quote that I thought up of one day when I was in a really terrible mood, and I just was like, today is a day that I want to take an eraser to the world. That's a quote I want to use in a book sometime. I don't know what book, I don't know who's gonna say it, but anyways. So that's kind of where my ideas originate. So for this entire video we're going to use Project Yellow as my example, basically. So Project Yellow began one day when I was reading, I don't even know what book. I was reading a book. I'm sure it was fantasy, and I had like my brain in the book but like not really, because I was thinking about other things, and then all of a sudden I was like, what if there was a story about a girl who was a complete human, normal girl, just living her best life as like a 20-something-year-old, trying to make her way in the world, but her entire life she's wanted to have an adventure happen to her, basically. And so from there I ended up picking up my phone and at the time I didn't have any of the sticky notes, but I wrote in my phone, I picked up my phone, and this is exactly what I wrote. What if there was a world where magic existed, but it was exactly like ours? Some people had it and some people didn't, and those who did were considered celebrities, ? And then our protag is Super Mundy, but dreams about having magic and being whisked off on an adventure away from her mundane life, and one day she decides with her friends that they're going to make this happen. And then I wrote under that, dabbling in dark witchcraft, accidentally kidnapping like the biggest music celeb magic user out there and his sister, and love happens between, like, it was just lots of rambly, just pouring whatever's in my head out. And then from there, usually I'll just kind of like let those ideas sit, like the ones in the back of my phone. I just let them sit. So honestly, anything can spark an idea. When I'm at work, funnily enough, that's when my ideas kind of run rampant. So that's kind of where my ideas spring from. It can literally be from anything, from music, from movies, from working on a random mining article at work. It could be, you know, just anything. Any part of my day I could get an idea in my head. And whenever that happens, I have to write it down. So when that happens, I have hopefully sticky notes by me, or I can just open up my phone and write it in the notes app or the reminders app, whatever is quickest, and I just write it down and I leave it there. Now, there's a difference between getting an idea for a book and then actually doing something with it. And the way that I choose the ideas to work on to then make into something is if they actually start to like do stuff in my brain. They sit there and they start to build in my brain and they start to like itch at the back of my brain a little bit. It feels like that. It feels like the story is just dying to come out, and so I have to do something with it. So then I start bringing stuff together. I will make a Pinterest board, for example, for a character or the story as a whole. So for Project Yellow, here I'll spin you guys around and show you. So for Project Yellow, oh, this is for one of my characters on here, but we will go to Project Yellow specifically. I originally just started pinning things like, here, I'll go to the very, very beginning. So I started pinning names that I kind of liked and aesthetics that I liked or places that I was like, yeah, and I wanted it to be set in New York, and I knew that I wanted it to be, you know, like students in a cramped apartment all living together having to scramble for rent type of thing. And I was just starting to pin stuff about New York because I've been to New York, but I don't really know a whole bunch and I need to do research on it. And then I was like pinning like aesthetic photos that I wanted to kind of tie in. And then I would go through and I'd find writing prompts and just throwing it all in one spot. And then just kind of trying to organize my ideas. And then that's when like the individual character boards would come in. So I knew from the get-go that I wanted my main character to have a good name, but not something that's super weird that you see in YA a lot of times now. And her name actually didn't come to me very easily. It was everybody else's name that came to me pretty fast. But that is what I would do to kind of just get my ideas out, you know? And then I'm the kind of person, I like to write everything down by hand whenever I have ideas. So that is when I would whip out a brand new notebook, like this one, which is my Project Yellow notebook. And then on the very first page of the notebook, I would write, if I had a title in mind, which I don't, I just write untitled. And then I wrote like kind of what it is, and I wanted to be like fantasy, contemporary, new adult. And then I would write my name kind of thing. And then underneath I just wrote a little like dedication that I might use, I don't know. And then on the inside I started writing character names because I love character names more than anything. I adore naming things and people and places and stuff like that. So I would start with making a list of like female names and then male oriented names and then ones that could work for both. And these are just first names in here. And then on the next page I would do last names kind of thing. And I would do kind of like rich sounding names because I knew I wanted to deal with the bourgeoisie in this novel. And then I'd have normal sounding names and then kind of like other. But I just like having a massive list of names that I can go back to for the story to then, if I needed to quickly name a character or if I needed to name a character that had like of huge importance, I would just quickly go back to this and I would pick it and I would mark it off so I know which ones I've used, which I haven't quite done because I noticed there's a few in here that I haven't marked as used, but I did for some of the last names because those are the ones that I honestly will accidentally reuse because I tend to gravitate towards last names. But then I would make, I won't show you that one, I would make basically like a page and I would write a character name at the top and then I would go to the next page, write the next character name kind of thing. Just the ones that like came to me right away or, you know, like I would do that. I did that for my main character and then I wrote a few things down. But really it's just random and it moves with my brain and whatever kind of things I thought about. But then I kind of decided with this specific project to bring this with me everywhere I went and I would just kind of let my brain do what it wanted. So with a lot of my characters, I ended up kind of like thinking up randomly different snippets of their backstory or what they're like or what they like to do. So for example, with my main character, like the guy in it, Ellis, the guy who comes into it who's part of the bourgeoisie, like it's a long thing. Ellis ends up, like in my head, I was like, I know from the beginning he looks like a mix between Shawn Mendes and Michael from Jane the Virgin. Like I had it in my head. He was gonna look like a mix between the two of them. And I wrote that down. I wrote it on a little tiny sticky note in the corner, and then I smacked it on his page because I was like, great. And then like little random things, like I know like he sounds like, because he's a singer, I know that he sounds like this singer, and I like wrote it down really fast and stuck it in the book. And then to like start digging further in to the characters themselves, I would start asking questions to myself. Like I would bring up on Pinterest, like, you know, one of those like typical character question sheets. I'd bring that up, and then I would start answering the questions to it, and then I would search for funnier questions or more like little random niche questions, and through that is when I would actually start to get scene ideas that kind of worked with the original plot line that I had thought up. And then I kind of thought about the plot line a little bit more, and I ended up writing in here like my main starting idea. So I wrote it out, and then I thought about it a little bit more, and then I decided to change a few things, and instead of having like the world have magic, I've decided to just have like, I ended up deciding like there's an underworld of magic, and then I changed my mind again a little while ago, and I was like, no, that's going to be too much of a storyline to have with the other storyline that I wanted to do with my characters, and I decided to just have like have it be like the bourgeoisie, like there's like a cult in the bourgeoisie of like regular humans who are dabbling in dark witchcraft and summoning demons and stuff like that. So it's gonna be like a little bit like the Diviners. If you guys have ever read the Diviners, I have not, but that's like kind of the flavor that I get it from. But the Diviners is on my TBR because I want to read it to see how that author has brought demon summoning and New York in 1920s and that kind of vibe to life, because I know it's a spookier vibe and I want to go with a slightly spookier vibe, but I also don't want it to make it like super fantasy heavy. I want it to be more contemporary. Like it's all a thing. And this all just keeps going as I start thinking about it. So I start asking questions, for example, about my characters, and for my main character, her name is Anna Haley Anderson, because I was like, that's a pretty good strong name, and it's got the alliteration in there with the AA, Anna Anderson. And I was like, okay, like her parents are so-and-so, does she have any sisters or brothers, and who are they? Does she have any nicknames? And I was like, Anna Banani, that would be, or Annie Banani would be like something her dad would call her. How old is she? How old do they kind of appear, right? Because like, in my life, I've always appeared older than I am because of my height and because I just gotta carry myself a little bit different than other people, and then like some people continuously look like they're 12 because they just have a baby face, you know, like it's all different, and how like people like see them that way. Basic things, eye color, what do they have, glasses, what color is their hair, what kind of hair do they have, what kind of body shape do they have, that kind of thing. And then like, what kind of music does she like? We start branching out into things she likes and dislikes. Is she cautious or a daredevil? What does she do when she's alone? What is she the same person when she's alone as she is when she's with her friends, or if she's with people out in public? It's just, it moves. Honestly, it all moves, and when you keep going like that, that's when I find that the scene ideas start popping in. And when you have those start popping in, you gotta write them down, right? You have to write them somewhere. So that's when I have like, I start with that, and then I have like kind of a brainstorming page where I like have main things that I have to think about, and then like I just kind of stream of consciousness wrote down kind of like what I'm thinking, what happens to Anna basically, who she is a little bit, and like kind of like the way that I want the beginning of the plot to start, you know. And then I have this page, which is basically just my sticky note page, whenever I get random ideas or things to think about or like scene ideas, I'll put them there. And then I start. Not in this, but on this baby, I start my lovely Google Docs planning page. Now, my Google Docs planning page, let me just bring it up here for you, starts basically like I write it at the beginning. I'll write Project Yellow kind of thing or whatever project it is. And then I have like a, what's it called? A basic outline of the 3-act structure that Katie Tastic uses, and then I will like paste that in here so I can fill it in later just as I keep going. But basically, because I didn't know what I wanted to really do with my structure and all that, I just started writing down my scene ideas in a giant list form. They were completely out of order, just random, what I wanted, what I knew I had to have, kind of thing like that. And then once I get to a certain point, that's when I start filling in the 3-act structure. So that's where things start to get more planny, and that's when you have to have a more concrete idea of what you're doing. And that's what takes me the longest. And at the point I am now, so I ended up writing most of block 1 and block 2 and block 3 all the way up to block 5. And then that's where I started to like have an existential crisis with the plot. And then I like kind of like didn't fill it out as much. I knew kind of where I wanted to go, and it just ended up being kind of a smorgasbord of random things, and I still have yet to completely solidify a plot outline. But you know what? That is totally fine. You know why? Because at this point, I'm sorry, at this point, I'm comfortable with starting to write because I already have. But I also know that I have stuff to research because there's a lot of things in this book that I want to include that I'm not familiar with myself. I just know that I want to include them because, yeah. And then I wrote myself a list at the bottom of my lovely act structure outline, and I just wrote like things to research: cults, witchcraft, demon summoning and their ties to witchcraft, New York and the surrounding area, the bourgeoisie, science stuff, because like some of my characters are studying for, like Brina is studying for, or Brina, I've never said that out loud, Brina, yeah, she's studying for her MCAT at the beginning of this, so I have to know a little bit about biology and that, like, I gotta, just random things, you know? But then, when you get to that point, you kind of have the scraps, the bare bones of a novel, and disclaimer, this is going to change every time you go into your novel. There is, like, when you move through your novel, things are going to change. The characters are going to decide for you to take it another way than you originally wanted. It's going to happen. So, I like to tell myself that I am a plotter because I like to have things really organized. I like, for Project Dark, I ended up having a completely plotted out book. Pretty well, at least. Even if I only went in and like would do chunks of my plot at a time, like really have a fleshed out Act 1, and then Act 2 was kind of there, and then like I knew where my ending was gonna be. That's like the main thing for me, is knowing my beginning and my ending, no matter what. This, though, did kind of trick me a little bit, because I ended up thinking that at the beginning I was gonna be like, this is just gonna be a standalone kind of thing. But then I realized I had too much story to tell, so it's probably going to be a duology if I can do that, or if I can shrink it down into one and just leave it with one, that'd be preferable for me, but we'll find out. So the ending was a little bit loose for me, which is very terrifying to me. I like knowing where my endings are. Even in my Project Dark, which is going to be a series, hopefully, I know the ending of my first book, I knew that, and then I know the ending of the whole series as a whole, so I know what I'm working towards. It's very important to know what you're working towards, at least vaguely, so you're not just like shooting into the dark with nothing to go by. Anyway, that's how I feel. That basically in a really rambly, random nutshell video is how I get my ideas, how I decide to do stuff with my ideas, and then what do I do to kind of flesh out the ideas. So I hope this was kind of entertaining and instructive at the same time. Let me know down below if anything in my process is the same as yours. I would love to find out. Also, if you are a plotter, let me know, or if you are a penciler, let me know, because I find that fascinating how you can just go in and just whoosh, all the way through, or if you are a plantser, which is both. I sometimes can be both. Depends on the novel, depends on the project, depends on my characters, depends on where I'm at. You can catch me in another video soon. There are a lot of other writing videos on here, writing vlogs more specifically. But I really hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe and like this video down below. And hit that little bell icon so you know when I upload. And stay kind and keep on writing. Bye guys.